Okay, so this is the MicronWings Mini Delta kit. So these are all the parts that we have here. So we're actually going to look at how to build this. We're going to make all of these parts into one of these. So we're going to follow the manual that's on the website, and we're going to do everything in the same order. Okay, so these are the kit parts here. A couple of things we're going to need before we start. Okay, you're going to need a couple of hobby knives. Okay, fine screwdriver. You'll need some tweezers, a pair of fine scissors, a couple of matchsticks or something to use with the glue. We'll need some hobby tape. Okay, so this is just hobby masking tape. And importantly, you'll need some foam glue. This is UHU POR, expanded polystyrene. Okay, this is the new version, the expanded polystyrene, but you can use UHU POR. And some wood glue. This one here is UHU Heart, but any sort of wood glue will do fine. Okay, so let's have a look at the process of actually building it. First piece of foam we're going to need is this piece of foam. So what we need is this little template that we use here. This is to actually make the bulkhead. Okay, so we're just going to cut that out. Okay, that piece there we don't need, we can just throw it away. Okay, what we've got in our little bag of parts here is 2 metal tubes. So these metal tubes are the spacers, so these are going to get the bulkhead all lined up properly. So we'll just take them out. Okay, so that's the 2 metal tubes there. Okay, from our balsa wood sheet, we'll need this part here. This is the balsa part of the bulkhead. So we'll just cut that out. Okay, so that part there, just push it in very carefully. Should fit neatly into there. Okay, these 2 tubes will go into the holes. They're quite a firm fit, so just push them in, get them lined up straight, and they'll just slide in. Okay, there we go. No gluing required for those. Just push them in. Okay, so that sets our bulkhead. So this is a template. This is going to keep everything straight when we do the bulkhead. Maybe just a little bit of tape to keep this in place while we're working on it. Just tape that down so it doesn't move. Okay, the next set of parts you're going to need are from the plywood parts. So we're going to need both of these parts here. I'll just cut them out over the side here. Okay, so that's those 2 parts there. And we're also going to need the carbon rods. Now these are the shorter rods. Okay, so in the kit you've got the longer rods and the shorter ones. These ones are the spars for the wings. These are the ones we want, the shorter ones and the thicker ones. And they're going to go in here like this. Okay, so the first thing is this part here. It's one with the 2 slots in it, with these slots. And we're going to glue that straight down onto there. So we're going to need some wood glue on the back and glue it straight down. We'll actually put the wood glue onto this part here. Okay, so it's good to use a matchstick. I've sharpened this one on the end here. So you can use your matchstick just to spread the glue out. Okay, try not to get too much glue on. You don't want it to fill up the holes and the gaps. Try and get it around the top of those metal tubes as well. Okay, so with that done, we can put this piece on. So it should just fit very firmly over the metal tubes. Just push it into place. Okay, there it is there. So once it's in place, we'll just push it down gently on either side. Okay, so that keeps the bulkhead all nice and straight. Okay, so without letting this dry, we're just going to move straight ahead. I'm going to just use wood glue in here, even though we're gluing carbon, that's fine. Okay, and then more wood glue on here. Okay, so this is for this part here. Now also on this bulkhead, you can just put some glue on these wing parts here. Right. Okay, so once again we'll spread the glue out. And just make sure you get it around the tops of those metal tubes. Around the edges there. Okay, a little bit more glue on the bottom. Okay, so with this part, what we're doing is we're going to work without letting it dry. We're going to put the whole bulkhead together before the glue from each part is dried. Okay, once that's there, the carbon rods, let's put this part here, the carbon rods slide in here. Okay, and you can see these lines here. Okay, cut in the foam, that's to line them up. Okay, so we just push the carbon rods in there. This one here, remember you've got your glue on these arms, and that goes down that way. So once again, this goes over the top of the metal tubes to line it up, and then just pressing it down gently, just work it down. Okay, now these should be lined up here. What we'll do is we'll just clear any glue out of this section here. Make sure there's no glue in here as well. Okay, that's fine. Now, these arms need to go in between those slots in the foam. So what we might do is just use a little bit of tape. Okay, so we just want to hold this in place as it dries. So put the carbon arm right between those slots and just tape it down in place. Okay, like that. Okay, so that's the bulkhead completed. So we're just going to allow that to dry there. We'll just put this over to the side to dry. So I'll just take this tape off. So that bulkhead needs to be set aside so the glue actually fully dries. It might take half an hour or so. So we'll just gently pick that up and put it over there. And we'll move on with the next part. So for the next part, you're going to need these pieces here. I'm going to use my blunt, I'm using a sharp point here for cutting the foam, and the blunter point there. It's not blunt, but it's that shape there for cutting all of the wooden pieces. Okay, so the pieces we're going to need from the plywood is this piece here. Okay, so that piece, and we're going to need this piece here, and this part. This is the canopy former. Okay, so this needs to be glued onto there, and we're going to need one more piece from this sheet of foam here. You'll see that there's this piece of wood in here. I'll just poke that through the other side. Okay, and there it is there. That's the other piece we're going to need. Okay, so this part here, very simply, we just glue it on. So a little bit of glue. A little bit of glue around the edge. Just there. This piece goes on here. Okay, so press it on and just make sure it's flush. Okay, at the top, just make sure it's flush along there and flush on the sides here, like that. And just clear any glue out from these parts here if you need to. Just make sure there's no glue in there. Okay, so that's that part done. The next part is this part, and we're just going to glue this part into here. Okay, so a little bit of glue around here. Okay, plenty of glue. And just press that in there. Okay, it's okay to leave a little bit of glue around the edge here. Alright, one thing we want to do is make sure that this is vertical. So make sure that that's standing up vertical there. And we'll set those two parts aside to dry. While those parts are drying, it's a good idea to take some time and set up your radio gear. So here I've got a micro receiver, and we've got our motor and ESC all connected up. Okay, and we just want to make sure our servo arms are on straight and that we're getting them on the right side. Okay, so this system, I'll put it this way. You can see I've already got this set up. Okay, you'll need to do mixing on your transmitter. So I've actually set this one up as right and left. Okay, I'll just stick these down here. Now I've actually labeled my servos so I can clearly see right and left. Okay, so you can see the servo arms moving there. Now, an important thing is on your transmitter. Okay, just make sure your trims are set correctly. Okay, so the trims should be in the center here. And you've got your mixing set up. Okay, we'll just go into here. Okay, so you've got something similar to this. You've got your mixing set up over there. Okay, so basically you want your arms to move like this. I'll just move these in a little bit like this. Okay, so with up elevator, you want the arms to move that way. With down elevator, they both move this way. Right elevator, this arm should be moving up, forward, and the opposite. Okay, so get everything set up. Importantly, make sure your arms are straight. Okay, so with your trim center, make sure your arms are pointing straight up. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to glue them. Once we've got all that set up, we're going to glue everything in, the servos in here. So we're going to take the wing ribs with the servo cutouts. Okay, so these two here. Right, so this is the right side, then this one's going to go like this, and that one's going to go like that. So we're just going to glue them in now. We'll use a little bit of UHU pour. Okay, it's foam glue, but it's nice and sticky, so it's perfect for doing this. So we're not going to be screwing the servos in. We're just going to be gluing them in instead. So a little bit of glue around this area. Okay, I'll put too much glue on, so we'll just take a little bit off. A little bit on the inside there. Okay, so this one goes like this. Okay, so important things to note is that the servo arm is towards the back of the wing. That's the front of the wing. So it's towards the back of the wing, and it's like this. Okay, we're going to set that one down to dry, like that. And we're just going to glue the other one in too. Exactly the same thing. A little bit of glue on here. A little bit of glue there. I'm just gluing that in place. Okay, so we're going to let them dry like that, and that's our servos set up. Next we'll be cutting out some 3mm Depron pieces. So this is the sheet of 3mm Depron. We're going to cut out the control surfaces and the wingtips here. Okay, so we'll just cut these out. And what we're going to do is actually sand these down. We're just going to sand the bevel into the edges. Okay, so any sanding you do it in maybe an outdoor area, somewhere with lots of wind. Okay, so these are the pieces we need. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut a bevel. Now we need to bevel the control surfaces. First we set them up like this, so we don't end up with two right sides. We've got the left side and the right side. So these are the surfaces here we're going to cut the bevel into. Okay, so basically it's going to turn them like this. Going to use a steel ruler. Okay, so what we're going to do is line them up level with the ruler there, and then we're going to put our knife on about a 30-degree angle and just undercut them like this all the way down. Okay, we'll end up with a triangular piece like this. Oops. Okay, and there's our control surface. We'll just have a look at that. If we can get some focus there. There we go. Okay, so we'll do the same to the other one. Remember, we've got our left and right pieces here. Okay, like this. So this one also needs to be cut the same way. Once again, lining it up there, and then just with the 30-degree angle, cutting it through like that. Okay, next we're going to move outside to sand these down. We're also going to sand the wingtip areas. Now with these, okay, basically these are going to go onto the wings. Let's say they're going to go this way, onto the wings like this. So you put them symmetrical, so you've got a left and right face. And we're just going to put some lines here just to make sure that we don't sand this area. So we're going to sand around the edges on both sides, but not these two parts here. Okay, that's where they're going to connect onto the wings. So we'll just move outside and we'll look at doing some sanding. Now the kit comes with a piece of sandpaper here, so you can either wrap that around a block of wood or something like a matchstick box and use that for sanding. But if you actually have one of these proper sanding blocks with a curved edge on it, then it's much better to use that. Okay, I'm just going to wrap some sandpaper around there. Okay, this sandpaper here is 180 grit. So I think 180 is good. It could even be a bit finer. Okay, so we're going to sand the control surfaces. So basically these are quite thin. Parts like this, we can just get in there and sand them. Just by supporting them underneath with the fingers and sanding them like this. Okay, but for longer stretches, like the edge there, you might want to support that with the edge of the table and just give it a quick rub, like that. Lining that up with the edge. Okay, this one here. Okay, don't sand the edge where you've put the bevel in, just leave that. We'll flip it over and we'll do the other side. Once again, just using the tables to support the Depron as you're doing the sanding. And then for the curved part, you can just support it with your fingers and very gently sand it. Okay, so that's the control surfaces. The wingtips, we can use a different technique. We can actually just put them together like this, and they'll support each other. and then we can just sand them like so. Okay, just a couple of strokes with the sandpaper, that's all you need. We can turn it over and do the other one. Now I'm just keeping them level here. So just using two together sort of supports them. So remember, on the insides we weren't going to do those edges because that's where they attach to the wings. But on the outsides here, we can give them just a little bit of a sand around there. Okay, so always do all of your sanding outside. If you're producing Defron dust with the sanding, best to be outside. Okay, and then we just flip these pieces over. We're just going to go around the edge here. Okay, so we've just flipped them over there. And once again, just use them to support each other as we do the sanding for here. Okay, we can go up to here, that's fine. Flip it over and do the other side. Okay, you might even want to wear a mask. If you're doing a lot of sanding, you can see the dust on the table here. Okay, so that's those pieces done. Okay, there's our control surfaces sanded. Now, the control surfaces will be going like this, and the bevel, if you can see it, the bevel is actually here on the top. Okay, so our control surfaces are hinged on the bottom with hinge tape, and they pivot to the top. So we set them out like this, so we've got a left and a right, and what we're going to do is attach the control horns. So we'll just cut out the control horns. There we go. So these can just be glued on with UHU pour expanded polystyrene. We just put a little bit of glue on here. So on this model, the control horns are actually going on top. Okay, just put enough glue on there. And the control horns just go in like so. Okay, I just like to push them in and out just to get the glue worked into the holes. There we go. So as we're working through this, we're sort of jumping from one part to the next. We'll work on the wings for a bit, and then we'll go back to the fuselage. And we're just following the manual, and we do that just to let one part dry as we work on another section. So make sure that they're vertical, like that, and we've got left and a right. Okay, and they can be set aside to dry now. There we go. So we'll put them there. Right, the next thing we're going to do is start working on the canopy. So we'll need these parts here. These are the side parts for the canopy. Okay, and the part that we glued before, this part here. Now, important thing to remember is that this hardwood piece is going to go towards the back of the canopy. So when we glue this together, let's say this is the left hand side here, this plywood piece that you can see right here is going to go facing the back. So it's going to go like that. Okay, so we're just going to use some wood glue now, and we're going to glue them together. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set these out so we go left and right side. Just put a line of glue there. Like that. And remembering to keep that hardwood piece towards the back. This just goes in here. Okay. And then in here. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to set that aside to dry. You can see you can change the width of these. If you've got a pad like this, it's easy just to line it up with the lines, just to keep it all nice and square. So once you've got it square, just set that aside to dry. And we'll come back to that later and work on that a bit later. So having done that, we just go back to our to our bulkhead here. Okay, I'm just going to take the pieces of tape off that were holding those carbon rods in place. Okay, so we're going to remove the bulkhead from the foam. Now, it'll probably have a little bit of glue attached to it, so just take it out. Now, what we need to do is just clear any glue away from bits like this. Okay. So there might be a little bit of glue left in these gaps here. So we just give them a little bit of a scrape and up the arms there, just to clear out any glue. Same on this side. Okay, and just give it a general clean up around the edges. Okay, a pair of tweezers sort of helps as well, just for getting little bits of glue off. Okay, so there's the bulkhead. One more bit of glue need to clear off just here. Right, what we're going to do now is we're going to put the bulkhead back down into the Depron. Okay, so we've got these metal tubes here sticking out. So those metal tubes are going to go basically down into those two holes there. Okay, that's just going to mount it nice and flush on the piece of Depron while we glue the other pieces in. Okay, so one piece we're going to need, okay, from our plywood pieces is this piece here. It's the one with the more square parts here. Okay, so we'll just cut that out. Okay, and we're going to glue that into here. Right, so a little bit of glue. Actually, we'll do this all in one stage. So we'll put a bit of glue here, we'll put there, and actually these holes, and all across there too. We'll do this all in one section. Okay, so this literally just goes into there, slots down there, and the next part we're going to put in is this part here. Okay, so it's important we get the orientation right. So we've got the part sticking up here, and this part are on the same side. Okay. Before we do, a little bit of glue here to line up with this part here. Okay, and we'll just gently work that in there. Okay, just use a matchstick and just clear out any glue from around here that we don't need. I like to use these sticky notes. Okay, so just clear out anything we don't need. If I can turn this around and we'll have a look at the other side. Okay. There we go. Now what we're going to do is we'll put this here so we can see this. We need to make sure that this is vertical. So just ensure that that's up at 90 degrees. There we go. Just adjust a little bit. Just make it sure it's up at 90 degrees there. And we're just going to set that aside to dry now. The next parts we're going to need are these shaped parts here. So we'll just cut them out. So there's 3 of these. Now one of these is an odd shape at the front. So the odd shape one is actually going to go in the middle when we glue them together. There we go. Okay, so you can see we've got 2 the same here, and there's the odd shape one there. So that one there is going to go in the middle. I'll just put a little bit of glue on both sides of that one. Okay. I like to just skewer these with a knife, just makes them easier to work with. Glue on either side. These just go on. Okay, so once they're put together, the one on the middle is going to have the little gap, and that's a cutout for the wires, the motor wires, to run through. Okay, we'll take that off there. We'll just put these down and get them all lined up at the front and on the bottom. Just make sure they're all flush. Okay, and that can be set aside to dry as well. So we'll put that up there to dry. Okay, next part is the base. So this is the stand that the aeroplane can sit on. So we'll take these parts out. This is just a display stand. Okay, there's one side and this side, and we've got two pieces that go in the center. Now, of course, these the holes you see in the middle there, you might want to punch all those little holes out. I've done that already. I've just punched the holes out there. So these are pretty self-explanatory. They just slide in like this. I won't bother going through the process of gluing them because you can see how it works. Okay, these are just glued together like that, and that makes our display base. Okay, I've already got one of those, so I'm just going to put that over there. Okay, moving on from there, we're going to make the bottom cover. Okay, once again, we get our 3mm Depron, and we need this piece here. We'll just cut that piece out. And from our parts sheet, our parts bag, okay, what we want is this little, what we call FR4 board, these parts here. Now we'll cut those out. So this is going to be the canopy cover for the bottom of the fuselage. Alright, so these parts are actually glued onto here. This part here goes at the back. You can see there's a line there, lines up. There's a hole there, sorry, lines up. So that's going to go on that side, and this piece is going to go on the opposite side. So this one on top, that one underneath. And we're just using UH-4 again. So a little bit of glue on here. Okay, I don't need to use too much glue. And just line that up. Okay, so line that up there so it's flush with the back here and centered. Okay, so that's on that side, and then we flip it over, and this goes on this side. So on this piece, you've got two little notches. So you can see there's a notch there and a notch there, and that just lines up with the front edge of the foam. So once again, a little bit of glue, not too much. Putting this on here, and we'll just get it nice and centered in the foam. There we go. Okay, so you've got this on one side, and on the back here you've got this piece on the other side. Nice and simple. Okay, once again we set that aside to dry, and we'll move on. Next part, 3mm Depron again. We need these pieces here. So these pieces are just support pieces that go inside the canopy at the front. So I'll just take them out. Okay. Before we do that, we'll just get the front of the canopy. Okay, so we're going to glue this piece in. So this piece goes actually this way. So you've got this little lug here pointing out the front. So it's going to go in there like that. Okay. Heaps of glue there, we'll wipe it off later. That just goes in there. Make sure the sides are flush. So we'll just get rid of any excess glue we don't need. Like that. It's okay to have a little bit of glue in this part here. You can put any excess in there if you want. Okay. Just squeeze that and it should be the same distance apart all the way through. Okay, so once we've done that, you might want to let that dry a little bit. I'm just going to move on here. Okay, so these pieces are actually going to go in here, and they're going to line up flush with this line here, with this edge here. So they're just going to sit in there. Now with these pieces, where they are cut out, there's a little bit of a lug there. We'll just try and trim that off. And same on the other one. That's where it was cut out of the foam. Good. Okay. So a little bit of glue here and a little bit of glue just there. And these pieces, once again, I'm just going to use my knife to set it in place. Okay, that's one. The next one. Okay, you don't need any glue on this part here. You can leave that free of glue. And just set it in there. Okay, so with that done, we can set that apart, set that part over there and let it dry. Okay, coming back to the 6mm depth one as well, we'll cut out these pieces. So we're just doing some work with pieces we're going to use later and getting them done so that they can just dry for later. Okay, there's 2 holes in here. Okay, with these 2 pieces, we set them up like this. We want the left and the right, so we're just going to put them like that. We're going to cut out our support braces. So these are the pieces where you use to actually balance the plane. You put a piece of wire through here and balance the plane using these pieces. So these pieces are going to be glued on like that. And once again, we've just made sure that we've got a left and the right hand side. Now, in your bag of parts, you'll have a longer piece of carbon. Okay, we use this piece of carbon for center. Okay, so what we're just going to do is put a little bit of glue around here, around the hole. We'll just put these pieces on. They go this way with the rounded point pointing downwards. Okay, just using our piece of 1mm carbon, just sort of find the center of the hole and get them centered there. Okay, like that. So just make sure you've got the left and right side. Okay, there we go. And once again, set them aside to dry. Once the bulkhead is dry, we can just remove it from the sheet. Okay, we'll just take it out there. Just clear out any bits of foam. So once again, just scrape away any pieces of glue that are left over, especially from these lugs. these legs on the side here. If there's any glue that needs to be cleared out, do that now before we move on. Right, so what we're going to do is attach the sides. Okay, so here's the sides here. We'll just cut them out. Okay, there we go. Now, these sides, the carbon rod goes through the back hole there. Now just slide this on at first. Okay, just make sure it all fits in neatly on the back here. So these are going to be at a bit of an angle, just following the angle of the bulkhead. And that should line up there. And on the front, this goes just under here. So just have a look where the glue needs to go. And the next step is to actually glue these on. Okay, it's a little bit tight there, a little bit rough there, a bit tight. So I'll just scrape that off. There's a little bit of glue on there. We'll try this one on the other side. Okay, just making sure it slips on the back here. Don't force it, just nice and gently. Okay, so once you've confirmed that both sides fit on quite okay, then you can just move on and actually glue them in place. Okay, I've actually put that one on upside down, haven't I? Okay, so it's a good idea to actually put these things on before you glue them, just so you know exactly how they go on. Okay, there we go. So there's that one fitting on just nicely there. Okay, so now ready to glue. So we're going to use our wood glue. Okay, so important here is to get the wood glue in these gaps around the edge, around the back here on the bulkhead. Oops, okay, there, so you can see it. Okay, going all the way up the base plate. All the way up here to the front and a little bit on the bottom here at the front. And then also importantly just here, need to put some glue there. Okay, so this goes on here, just slide it up. Okay, just work gently. You might want to go a bit slower than I'm going here. Okay, so that one's going to sit right on there. And it's going to be at an angle, following the angle of the bulkhead. Okay, on the front you might like to just use a little bit of tape, just to hold it in place. Okay, just there, just to hold that in place. And then we do exactly the same thing with the other side and glue the other side on. Okay, so once again, so you can see it this time, some glue around the bulkhead there, where it slides in on the base plate. Okay, up here. And at the front, just on the bottom there. Okay, just slide it on. Clip that over at the front. A little bit of tape, whatever. This masking tape is good, this modeling tape. It's not too sticky. Just get rid of any excess glue before you tape. Okay, just make sure it's all together. Clean any glue out. Okay, one thing you might want to do is just get a little bit of modeling tape and just make sure that these pieces here are flush with the middle bulkhead there. Just make sure they're pulled in nice and firm on there. Okay, So that's what that looks like. Next thing we're going to do is put some pieces of foam in the bottom here. Okay, so these two pieces of foam are these long skinny bits here. So we'll just cut them out. Okay, so these pieces, once again, just sort of flatten it out. The piece where there's a bit of a lug where you cut it. If there is, just flatten it out. Okay, so these two pieces are going to go just in here. Okay, they're going to go up against the edge here. Now, importantly, there's going to be a little bit of a gap here because the side of the fuselage is on an angle. That's okay. That's fine if there's a gap there. So once again, I'm just going to use the knife to get everything in place. And the glue on these ones just goes on the bottom. Okay. So just enough glue on the bottom there. And just glue that one in place, right up flush against the back of the back bulkhead. That one goes there. And the same thing with the next one. Just a little bit of glue. And just gluing that one in place. Okay, so with those glued in, the body's starting to take shape. Now, at this point, if you've got an FPV setup like this one here, a micro FPV setup, so this is one that we sell, you might want to actually install your FPV right now before you go any further. There's a gap here at the front. So this gap here at the front is for these wires to slide through. So this means you don't have to resolder your camera to your board later on when you install it. So if you want to, you can just slide those wires through there into the gap, and you might want to just tape this one with some tape underneath there. Just tape it all underneath in place, and you can continue with the mounting later. Okay, so the reason we do this now is because there's a covering that's going to go over here, and that's going to stop us from sliding that in later. Okay, so there we go. If you want to do that now, you can, or just continue on with the build. At this stage, with both of your canopy pieces dry, you can actually get your canopy and slide it onto the frame like this and see how it all fits together. So you'll notice where you've got your clearance in here. Now if you're going to mount a camera, we've also got some parts here. Let's cut them out and have a look at them. So these are the mounting brackets for cameras. Of course, it's all going to depend on the camera you're using and which size. However, these parts can be glued on here like this. Okay, and that's where your camera would mount, in between those two parts. And then you can check your canopy slides on, and you can see the canopy goes either side of those two spaces there, the mounts. Okay, so if you're mounting a camera, you might want to glue that in right now. Okay, for this build, we won't be gluing them in at the moment. Right, so what we're going to look at is the base cover. So the cover that goes on the bottom of the fuselage here. We'll get our 3mm foam parts. Okay, so it's this part here, the one with the cutout. So we'll just take that out. There we go. Now, this is the part where we need to actually cut the foam. I can see one of those slots hasn't cut all the way through, so I'm just going to continue it. Okay, so what we're going to need is a sharp edge. Okay, so I'm using one of these cutting boards are actually quite good. They've got a nice sharp edge on them, and we can use that to actually bend this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to bend these down until along the lines there, the half cut lines, about that much. Let's move it forward to the next one, bend it down again. Now you don't need to bend it this much probably, I'm just exaggerating for the sake of the video, but just about maybe 30 degrees down to about there. Okay, next line, keep going until you've finished all of the lines. Okay, and you'll end up with a piece that looks a little bit like this. Now, once you've done that, we'll go back to the canopy, sorry, the frame. So this is going to be glued on here. So we're going to glue it at the front first, and then we're going to work towards the back and secure it in. Alright, so we get our UHU glue. So once again, just take a look at where you actually need to attach the glue, to put the glue. So it's going to go into these holes, and then it's going to go actually onto the back of this part here and here. Okay, so we're not going to be putting any glue on these bottom surfaces here, because they're going to be facing up there and attaching to the canopy. Okay, so we've got that, and we might as well just work all the way down. Now don't use too much glue here, just a very small amount of glue. Okay, now I don't bother putting the glue inside these lug areas, I just leave them. They're more for positioning rather than gluing. So we just put a little bit of glue along here. I'm just using a very fine amount of glue here, and with this one I'm actually going to put some on this part here as well, on the fuselage itself. Just a little bit along here. Okay, so these bottom plate is actually going to butt up against there, so I'm also going to put just a little bit on the back here. Okay, so let's work on attaching it. So first of all, we just push the front in like this. Let's get a better look at that if we can. Okay, so the front is just attached there. Make sure that's secured well. Just turn it over, you can see there how it looks on top. So what we might want to do is actually just get a few pieces of model masking tape, and we might just put one piece here and a piece on the sides here, down there, and a piece on this side, just to hold the front in place as we pull the bottom canopy and secure it in place. So we just push it down, working from the front to the back. Just push it down here, along there. Just make sure it's flush with the sides. Okay, so make sure it's flush with that side, and here flush with that side at the back. Push down here, wipe away any glue, any excess glue. Okay, and that's how we attach the bottom plate. Now if your base cover is already done, it's already dry, we'll just take our screw out of the bag here. There we go, so we've got a screw there, that's to attach the base cover. Okay, so this one just goes in here, straight down there, and screws in. Okay, now best to wait for this to dry first before you do this, but I'm just demonstrating here. So this screw is actually going to go into that screw hole there. Okay, so it might not go in the first time, you might have to do it a couple of times, or even use something to make the hole a little bit bigger if it's difficult to get it in. Anyway, we'll give it a try. So straight down through here. Okay, so make sure the screw goes straight. Okay, there it is, it's found the hole. Now importantly with this thing, don't over tighten it. If you over tighten it, it's just going to buckle this down a bit. Okay, so there it is there. That's holding the base cover in place. Okay, so that's that part done. The next part we're going to need, let's put that over there. The next part we're going to work on is the sides of the fuselage. So this is them here. We'll just take these out. Now once again there'll be actual pieces of foam inside these holes here which you'll need to poke out. So just make sure that all of the holes, as you see here, are empty. And once again we're just going to give these a little bit of a sand around the edges. You don't want to sand them to a round, you just want to give them a little bit of a bevel, just so they look a little bit better. So we'll just I'll just pause the video and we'll do that and come back. Okay, so we're just going to sand down the sides of the canopy. Now these parts actually go in here, so we might just insert them in there, and we'll give them a sand as well. Just hold this piece of wood here as you sand it, just so it doesn't get knocked off. And just trying to put a little bit of a bevel on, not too much. Maybe about that much. Okay, so this is optional, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but it looks just a little bit better if you just smooth them off. Okay, and on the back, just hold that piece in there as we do this. Okay, take that piece out now. Okay. So that's what the pieces look like. It's a better picture, what it looks like when it's sanded. Alright, so now with these pieces sanded, you've got a nice round curve in them. Now of course that's optional, you don't have to sand them, it's totally optional. Okay, we'll put these pieces away. So now we're ready to actually glue these pieces onto the airframe. So they're just going to slide through here. There's a hole at the back. That slides down there. And we just line it up here with the pin and just press it on. Okay, so that's how it goes on. We just check both sides go on properly and then we'll glue them on. So what we'll do, with that on there, we're just going to get a pen. Right, and we're just going to put a little mark in here. Just going to mark the spots where there's no glue that needs to go onto the wood. Okay, that's that side. We'll do exactly the same thing on the other side. So just sliding the piece on. Come to here. Okay, and you can see these exposed pieces of balsa here. We don't want any glue on there at the moment. So we're just going to put a little pen mark there. So when we take these pieces off very gently, there we go. We can see that there's an area there that's marked out that won't have any glue on it. So basically we're going to cover this whole face with glue and along the foam at the bottom here. And we're going to just glue both sides on. Okay, so we'll have a look at how we do that. So I'm just using foam glue. So when we're gluing foam to any other surface, we just use the foam glue. Okay, so put glue evenly over the surfaces. So you don't want too much. Don't want so much glue that's going to squeeze out everywhere, but you just want a good coverage. Okay, leaving that part bare, a little bit on the back here, don't forget. Okay, sometimes good just to use a matchstick and just smooth the glue out. Okay, if you've got too much glue in one spot, just take it and transfer it to another spot. Okay. Making sure you've got some glue on the foam down the bottom there too. Okay, that's good. So we'll insert the first side. Okay, through the hole in the back there. Okay, lining this up right here, straight through there. And then just press it on, and it should be all lined up for you. Okay. Do exactly the same on the other side. Okay, so just putting enough glue on there, and then once again spreading it out. Don't forget to get this back piece here, that's important. Spreading the glue out, make sure you got the glue on this foam piece down the bottom here. Make sure you've got enough glue over there. Okay, so once again, technique. Just finding the hole at the back, putting the carbon rod through the hole. There it is. And then just gently sliding it up. This pin here goes through there. And just press it on and it should be automatically centered in the right position. Okay, just very gently squeeze it together. Make sure it's on there flush. Okay. And that's that part. So we're just going to put that aside to dry, and we're going to go on with something else for a little bit. Okay, the next part we're going to look at is the canopy. Okay, so here's two finished canopies here. So you might notice we've got a hole in one, and the other one is just a normal canopy. So this one here with the hole in it is for an FPV setup. So if you're using a camera, you're going to use that one. So here's the two pieces here. So we've got this being the standard one here, and the other option here is this one here with the cutout, which is the setup for the FPV. So you can just cut out whichever one you want and use that. Okay, we're going to cut out the one, just the standard one. So we'll cut this out. Cut this square rectangular piece out at the back here as well. Okay, a little bit of a line there that needs to be done a bit further through. Okay, so once again we're going to do our bending technique. So we'll get our sharp corner here, and we're just going to work on those lines, and we're just going to bend the foam down along those lines. If we get the lines lined up along the edge there, just bend it down. Doesn't have to be too much, just about 30 degrees, just bending each one of those lines down. Okay, so we'll get something like that. Okay, just sort of straighten it out a little bit. Okay, so this is going to be glued on to our canopy frame. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're actually going to start from the front, and we're going to glue the front we're going to glue the front in here first, glue that down, and then we're going to work our way back around here all the way to the back. So it might be handy just to press it in, just give it a quick check, make sure it all fits properly. It should just pop in very easily without too much force. Okay, so we confirm that it all fits properly. Okay, so we're going to make sure that we check which pieces the glue needs to go on. So it needs to go on this inner piece here and the back of these pieces here. Okay, so once again, the same as with the base plate. You don't need to get any glue on the bottom parts here. You do need the glue there. Okay, so just spread that out nice and thin. Put the extra glue somewhere else. Alright, so we're just going to work all the way along and just put the glue all the way along the sides here. Once again, we're not going into those notches with the glue. They're just for alignment. Okay, that's all good. So the first thing we do, before we go on, don't forget to put a little bit of glue here too. Just on these and across the top. There. Okay, so start by pressing this down at the front. So we get the front in place. What we might want to do is actually just get some tape, and we'll just tape the front in place so it doesn't get pulled out as we work further along the top. So I'm just going to, right down here where you can see it, just put some tape there. There we go, just some model masking tape. And we're just going to start from the front, clip in the first clip, and then just work way along. Might have to spread them a little bit. Get one side in, and then the other side, and work your way down towards the back. Okay, make sure the sides are flush. There we go. Now when you get to the back, you'll need a little bit of tape because of the curvature of the canopy. The back will stick up a little bit like that, so we're just going to have to tape that down. So what we do is just a little bit of tape on top here and just around onto the bottom there. Same thing on the other side, a little bit of tape on top, make sure it's flush, and just wrap it around the bottom. Okay. Now just have a look all the way along, just make sure it's sitting down. The glue should have taken and be holding that down. If it's not, you might want to put a little bit of tape here and there. We'll just put a little bit of tape around about here, just to hold it down while it's drying. There we go, those 2 points there. Okay, once you've done that, you can get this part. Okay, I've given this part a little bit of a sand just up the edges here, just on the front there and across here to even it up. So this is the air deflection for the motor mount, and that's just going to get glued straight in there. So a little bit of glue just on these parts. Okay, don't need too much glue here, and this part here. And then this can go straight in there. Right, so that part there can now be set aside and allow that to dry. Okay, so if our canopy, our fuselage is finished, what we can do now is we can add some other pieces. here's the pieces we need here. So it's these two pieces here that we can glue on. So we'll just cut those out. So these are just little templates to help us get the wings lined up properly. Now you can see they just simply slide on. Okay, onto these things here. So they're going to slide on there, and we're going to line them up at the back. They're going to be lined up with the carbon rod. So nice and flush top and bottom of the carbon rod at the back there, and over here at the front. Okay, so there's one of them for each side. Okay, so these parts are just, they're not really structural, they're just for lining things up. You don't need a lot of glue, just enough to stick them on. So put that one on there.